It has been brought to the attention of the interim government that close to 40 Amba women in the town of Big Babanki are under the custody of some fighters supposedly fighting for Ambazonia. However, there are conflicting reports, especially coming from the social media, as to the real identity of the perpetrators. Let me be very clear here, ladies and gentlemen. We here at this interim government are not, again, we are not going to sugarcoat or attempt to cover up what is crystal clear was an act conducted by rogue fighters supposedly fighting for Ambazonia. The idea that La République du Cameroon soldiers set up the women to protest against Ambazonia freedom fighters is laughable, again laughable, inaccurate, and an effort to promote wrongdoing by some stakeholders in this struggle. We cannot call out the dehumanizing deeds being perpetrated against our people by Ayaba Cho's ADF fighters and then choose to protect some other fighters doing exactly the same thing. In Batibo, the ADF, the mount road barricades, extort heavy sums of money from pedestrians, and have imposed other heavy monthly levies on both men and women in same communities. On the stretch of road linking Bamenda to Mbengwe, going for 3 months now, the ADF has again mounted roadblocks barring people from Mbengwe from using it, while at the same time they open it up for the enemy's army. People living in Mbengwe have to go through Bali to get to Bamenda, the chief commercial city where most household merchandise is bought. In Indor, General Sagon erected a 3-month barricade on Sabga Hill, unnecessarily punishing the people of Ngolke Tunja to have to divert through Imbunda to get to Bamenda on a daily basis. And we all condemned it. We all condemned it. We will not mince words here. This case in Big Babanki isn't any different. We know exactly when people are coerced by La République du Cameroon's army and elite to go out and protest Amba. And we know when it is not. We have seen them before. We saw them in Oku. We saw them in Boya once. The case of Babanki is different. The women were not coerced to protest. They were not La République du Cameroon propaganda material. They had legitimate grievances. They were out for the right reasons. They were being extorted by rogue fighters. That is just what it is. We must not, and again, we must not promote a precedent that can then spread like wildfire to other fighting units across Ambazonia. If we should allow it or tolerate it, it becomes a serious threat to the struggle. It turns the population against the struggle. It squeezes financial support and moral support from the struggle. At that level, we will no longer be able to stop it or control it. Therefore, we must all condemn it vehemently and do everything possible within our powers to stop it the moment it raises its ugly head. That is what we must do. I know you will undoubtedly be saying that this message is a reversal of the previous one sent out by your communication secretary. Of course, yes, that is true. Our communication secretary acted out of the limited information at his disposal at the time. But having gotten details of the abduction coming to us, we are better judged saying and doing the right thing than trying to be politically correct. We will not do that here at this interim government. The truth is that the Babanki women were abducted because they protested illegal levies on them by rook fighters not belonging to this struggle. The women were being taxed 5,000 francs and men to pay 10,000 francs monthly. On top of it, for over 2 years, the same rook fighters have made it a living hell for everybody in Babanki and the Boyo periphery. They really went to work to fight the enemy. Instead, they mounted checkpoints on the stretch of road to regularly extort civilians. That's what they were doing. This has gone on for close to 4 years, unstopped. Farmers from Boyo and Big Babanki cannot get their produce to Bamenda. And no merchandise leaving Bamenda can get to the population in Big Babanki or in Boyo. Public transporters refuse to ply the road because of the reckless extortion from these rook fighters. This is what the women in Babanki, Big Babanki, were protesting against, and they have the right to do so. When people fighting for freedom turn against the freedoms of the very people they are supposed to be fighting for, nobody, and again, nobody should be choked from protesting. If we hate it when it happens in Batibo, if we hate it when it happens in Pinyin, in Ndop, in Mbengwe, and anywhere else, we should equally detest and condemn it in the case of Big Babanki. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of those women. It is an aberration, an abomination in our culture for boys to go after their own mothers, arresting them, shooting some, and torturing others. How can boys carrying guns want us to believe that women carrying sticks were such a threat to them? Nobody loving this struggle and seeing those images emerging from Big Babanki from the comfort of their living rooms can support it. I don't think anybody can support it. Those women, one of them could be your own mother or your own auntie. I don't care how good a fighter you may be. I will not accept that to happen in my own county, not to my own mother. You should not accept it or support that in your own county either. It is no longer the war we fight against La République du Cameroon. It is alienating support for it. It is inflicting more pain on our people. It is leaving them more impoverished than ever. But it is even more troubling that some of the people who rush to defend the criminal and cowardly acts of the rook fighters do not even know them. They support them without knowing who they are. They don't know what chain of command they belong to. We must be very careful trying to associate everybody with a gun with Amber fighters. Not everybody carrying a gun is Amber. If we make the mistake of lumping everybody with a gun as Amber, then such cowardly acts stain the reputation and the integrity of the real ARF who are doing the right thing out there. Plain and clear, the interim government does not know those fighters, those rogue fighters who abducted the women. They are not the ARF that we know. They have occupied that stretch of the road for close to 4 years. And all they do is constitute a nuisance to the locals and those who use the road. They have never had a single confrontation against La République du Cameroon soldiers on that road, despite the fact that La République soldiers have a permanent checkpoint on the same stretch of road. The La République military uses it on a daily basis. They have never been attacked. But when civilians do, they are attacked and harassed to pay heavy indemnities. Sick civilians are regularly blocked from getting to Mbingo Hospital by these rogue fighters. In fact, a woman just told us how she had to cough out 20,000 francs recently to the cowards before she could make it to Mbingo Hospital for treatment. The money went into the hands of the driver, who in turn settled the cowards for the woman to get to the hospital. We are told that other sick people have to travel on foot from Big Babanki to Mbingo Hospital for treatment, because not all of them can afford such exorbitant charges or call it extortion. When transporters are not able to pay the charges, they are prohibited from using the road. But guess who suffers? The civilians, our own people. They suffer. Legitimate restoration fighters in Boyo have intervened over the years to get those rogue fighters off the road. They have tried severally to negotiate with this criminal gang to stop the harassment, but the rogues will not listen. No change. It is therefore time that we all join our voices and bring it to an end. Bring it to an end. And let me say something about this idea that tasking civilians to fund the war is the right mentality, is the right thing to do. I say no, it is not. It is called extortion, not taxation. We still have thousands of businesses out there belonging to Francophones and the colonial regime in Yaoundé, in our territory. You want money for anything? Go after them, task them, but leave the civilians alone. Go after the enablers and the so-called elite who wine and dine with the regime in Yaoundé. There are still many of them out there, but please, please, leave the civilians alone. In prosecuting this war, we must strive all the time to make sure we separate good restoration fighters from the rogue ones. If we don't do that, we risk all of them being painted with a broad brush, and the damage becomes collateral. Legitimate fighters must start to speak up too in condemnation of such overreaching. Legitimate Ambazonia restoration fighters must seek to separate themselves from recalcitrants who attack civilians instead of attacking the enemy. You do that for the sake of your own integrity. That is what it should be. That is what the genuine restoration fighters should be doing. However, having said this to our people, and I mean everyone on the ground, this struggle is about you. It's about your freedom and the freedom of your own children. You should never accept to be used by the regime, not for any reason. The reason why the rogues who abducted these women try to put it on some other quarter is because there have been known cases in the past of women coerced by the Yaoundé elite to protest Amba for no good reason. We know, for example, the case in Oku, Boya, and I think in Indian too. We will vehemently condemn any group of people who are coerced to protest legitimate activities of the legitimate Ambazonia restoration fighters. And we have done it before. We carry out spirited condemnation of the Oku women and the women in Boya, paid and sent on the street in the guise of peace advocacy, whereas their real mission, their real target was advocacy for a clampdown on the restoration fighters. We will do that again when we find out women are coerced to go out against legitimate fighters. My own brother has died fighting in this war. I know firsthand what the real AROF go through. We will defend them. We will back them. We will speak for them. But the rogue ones, we must shift them as they say. The one bad cocoyam spoils the whole pot of fufu. The one bad cocoyam spoils the entire pot of fufu.